Most people think the best way to win against a narcissist is to out-argue them, to expose their lies with logic, or to finally get them to admit what they've done. But in the realm of high-level psychology, those are the very things that keep you trapped in their web, because any response, even a negative one, is a form of fuel. The one thing a narcissist cannot survive, the one thing that causes a total systemic collapse of their false persona, is your absolute, unwavering silence. Silence isn't just a lack of noise, it is a withdrawal of the very oxygen they need to breathe, your attention. Today, we are exploring the terrifying psychological void that opens up for a narcissist when you stop reacting, stop explaining, and start pointing your inner compass back toward yourself. Stick around until the end, because I'm going to reveal the exact moment their rage turns into a desperate, and often dangerous, attempt to reclaim you. This is the dark science of why your silence is their greatest fear. The Mechanics of Narcissistic Supply. To understand why silence is so terrifying to a narcissist, you must first understand the concept of narcissistic supply. A narcissist is effectively a psychological hollow shell. They do not have a stable internal sense of self-worth or an identity that exists independently of others. They rely entirely on external validation, much like a parasite relies on a host, to tell them that they are powerful, beautiful, or superior. When you speak to them, whether you are praising them or screaming at them in anger, you are providing this supply by acknowledging their existence as the center of your world. Silence, however, represents the total cessation of this supply, which triggers a state of psychological starvation that they are unequipped to handle. Without your attention to mirror back their importance, their false self begins to crack, exposing the deep-seated shame they've spent their entire lives trying to hide. They don't just hate your silence because it's rude, they hate it because it threatens their very existence. To a narcissist, being ignored is a form of psychic death that they will fight at all costs to avoid. By staying silent, you are refusing to be the mirror they use to fix their hair, leaving them to face the darkness of their own reality. The threat of the internal void. When you go silent, you force the narcissist to look inward, which is the one place they are most afraid to go. Deep beneath the layers of grandiosity and the mask of perfection lies a vacuum of profound insecurity and self-loathing that formed long before you ever met them. Your constant engagement, your emotional reactions, and even your attempts to fix the relationship act as a distraction from this internal void. When you stop providing that distraction, the silence becomes a deafening roar that forces them to confront the emptiness of their own soul. They hate your silence because it acts as a vacuum that sucks away their delusions of grandeur and replaces them with a cold, hard reality. In that silence, they can no longer pretend they are the hero or the victim, they are simply a person alone with their own toxicity. This is why they will often describe your silence as abuse or cruelty. They are projecting their own internal pain onto your healthy boundaries. They are terrified that if the silence lasts too long, they might actually have to feel the weight of their own actions. Silence is the only thing that cannot be manipulated, twisted, or turned back on you, which makes it their ultimate kryptonite. The loss of control and predictability. Narcissists are obsessed with control, and they maintain that control by staying 2 steps ahead of your emotional reactions. They spend months, or even years, studying your inner compass so they can learn exactly which buttons to push to get a specific response from you. When you react with anger or tears, you are being predictable, and predictability is the foundation of their power over you. Your silence is the ultimate pattern interrupt because it provides them with zero data to work with. They don't know if you're angry, if you've moved on, or if you're planning your next move, and this lack of information creates a massive spike in their anxiety. They hate your silence because it puts the power back into your hands, making you an unreadable mystery that they can no longer navigate. In their mind, if they cannot predict your reaction, they cannot control your reality, and if they cannot control your reality, they are vulnerable. This vulnerability is intolerable to them, leading to a frantic state of mind where they feel the walls closing in. Silence is your declaration that you are no longer a piece on their chessboard, but a player who has walked away from the game entirely. Silence as a mirror of irrelevance. The greatest insult to a narcissist isn't hatred, it is irrelevance. Hatred still implies that they are important enough to occupy space in your mind and your heart, which feeds their ego in a twisted, dark psychology sort of way. Silence, however, communicates that they no longer matter enough to warrant even a single word of your energy. This is a direct hit to their narcissistic injury, which is the wound that occurs when their inflated self-image is punctured by reality. When you are silent, you are essentially telling them that they have become a non-entity in your life, a ghost that no longer has the power to haunt you. They hate this because they have spent their entire lives trying to be unforgettable, whether through excessive charm or excessive trauma. To be forgotten or disregarded is the ultimate failure in their eyes, far worse than being hated or feared. Your silence is a loud, clear statement that your inner compass has found a new north, and they are no longer on the map. This shift from being the center of your universe to being an irrelevant stranger is a blow from which their ego rarely recovers. Why your explanation is their weapon. Many people feel the need to explain why they are going silent, thinking that closure will help the situation, but to a narcissist, an explanation is just more ammunition. When you explain your feelings, you are giving them a map of your heart, showing them exactly where you are hurt and where you are vulnerable. They hate your silence because it denies them the opportunity to gaslight you, minimize your feelings, or twist your words into a weapon against you. In their hands, your closure becomes a tool for further manipulation and a way to keep the conversation going forever. Silence, however, provides no such openings. It is a solid, impenetrable wall that stops their dark triad tactics in their tracks. By not explaining yourself, are maintaining your dignity and refusing to participate in a trial where they are the judge and the jury. They hate that they can't win the argument because you've stopped arguing entirely. You are teaching them that your reasons are your own and they no longer have the right to access your inner world. Silence is the final word that requires no follow-up, and that finality is something they find absolutely intolerable. The psychological panic of the Hoover. When a narcissist realizes that your silence is permanent, they will often enter a phase called hoovering, named after the vacuum cleaner, because they are trying to suck you back in. They might send accidental texts, show up at your favorite spots, or use flying monkeys, mutual friends, to get information about you. They hate your silence during this phase because it makes their efforts look pathetic and desperate, which is the opposite of the high-status image they want to project. Every time they reach out and you remain silent, you are winning a psychological war of attrition that is slowly draining their power. This silence forces them to realize that their usual charm and manipulation have lost their potency, which causes a deep sense of panic. They are terrified that they have lost their supply for good and that they will have to start the exhausting process of finding someone new. Your silence during a hoovering attempt is the strongest boundary you can ever set. It tells them that the inner compass has been recalibrated and there is no way back into your life. The more you ignore their bait, the more they realize that their reign of terror is over. Silence reveals the smear campaign. One of the most common reactions to your silence is the smear campaign, where the narcissist begins telling lies to everyone you know to protect their own reputation. They hate your silence during this time because you aren't fighting back, which ironically makes their frantic lies look even more suspicious to outside observers. When they are screaming about how crazy you are, and you are quietly living your life with peace and dignity, the contrast becomes impossible for others to ignore. Your silence allows them to bury themselves in their own contradictions and vitriol while you remain above the fray. They want you to get angry and lash out so they can point to your reaction and say, "See? I told you they were the problem." By staying silent, you are refusing to give them the evidence they need to support their false narrative. You are allowing the truth to speak for itself through your actions rather than your words. This makes the narcissist look unstable and obsessive, which is exactly what they are trying to hide. Silence is the most effective way to dismantle a smear campaign without ever having to say a single word in your own defense. The power of gray rock silence. In cases where you cannot go completely no contact, such as co-parenting or working together, the gray rock method is a form of functional silence that narcissists absolutely loathe. This involves being as boring, uninteresting, and non-responsive as a gray rock, giving only one-word answers and showing zero emotion. They hate this because they thrive on emotional reactivity, and when you become a gray rock, you are essentially a broken vending machine that won't give them the supply they want. You are present physically, but your inner compass is completely offline to them, making the interaction useless for their ego. This creates a high level of frustration for the narcissist because they are putting in work to get a reaction and getting absolutely nothing in return. They will often try to escalate their behavior to get a rise out of you, but if you maintain your stone-cold silence, they will eventually move on to an easier target. This method proves that you don't have to leave the room to be silent, you just have to leave the emotional dynamic. It is a powerful way to reclaim your autonomy while still fulfilling necessary obligations. Silence, in this form, is a shield that protects your mental health from their constant energy vampirism. The transformation of the victim into the observer. As you maintain your silence, a profound psychological shift occurs. You stop being a victim of their narrative and start being an observer of their behavior. When you are caught in the middle of a conflict, it's hard to see the patterns, but from the vantage point of silence, the narcissist's tactics become glaringly obvious and almost predictable. They hate your silence because it allows you to gain the meta-perspective needed to see them for exactly what they are, a collection of defense mechanisms in a suit. From this height, their rages look like toddler tantrums and their gaslighting looks like desperate fiction. This clarity is the ultimate threat to a narcissist because once you see the man behind the curtain, you can never go back to being afraid of the illusion. Silence gives you the mental space to process the trauma and realize that the problem was never you, but their inability to be a whole human being. This objective observation is a form of mental freedom that the narcissist can never take away from you. By choosing silence, you are choosing to see the truth, and the truth is the one thing a narcissist cannot survive. Your inner compass is finally clear of their magnetic interference. Silence as the ultimate boundary. Boundaries are the narcissist's greatest enemy, and silence is the ultimate, impenetrable boundary that no amount of manipulation can cross. Most boundaries are negotiable in a narcissist's mind. If you say "don't talk to me like that," they hear "try harder to convince me I'm right." But silence is a hard no that leaves no room for debate, negotiation, or reinterpretation. They hate your silence because it is a boundary they cannot manipulate with their words or their fake empathy. It creates a vacuum where their influence dies, unable to jump the gap between their mouth and your ears. This boundary isn't just for them, it is for you, a way to protect your inner sanctuary from their constant attempts at invasion. When you are silent, you are building a fortress around your peace of mind that is powered by your own self-worth. It tells the world, and the narcissist, that your energy is a privilege that they have permanently lost the right to access. This level of self-respect is something a narcissist can never understand, which is why they find it so incredibly threatening. Silence is the wall that finally keeps the predator out. Reclaiming your inner compass. The final reason they hate your silence is that it signifies the moment you have finally reclaimed your inner compass. Throughout the relationship, they try to spin your needle, making you doubt your intuition, your memory, and your very sanity. But in the stillness of silence, your needle finally stops spinning and points back to your own truth. They hate that you have found a source of validation that doesn't include them, a sense of peace that doesn't depend on their approval. Silence is the sound of you returning to yourself, of you listening to your own heartbeat instead of their chaotic demands. It is the moment you realize that you are enough, and that their opinion of you was always a reflection of their own brokenness. By choosing silence, you are choosing a life of authenticity over a life of performance, and that is a world the narcissist can never enter. They are left behind in the noise they created, while you move forward into the quiet strength of your own future. Your silence is your victory, your healing, and your ultimate liberation. Silence is the final word that requires no follow-up. By choosing it, you aren't just winning a psychological battle, you're reclaiming your life. If you're ready to stop being a source of supply and start being the master of your own energy, subscribe to Inner Compass. We're building a community of people who are no longer available for manipulation. Before you go, comment the word silence below if you've officially stopped explaining yourself. I'll be in the comments hearting your stories of liberation. Your needle is finally pointing north. Keep following it.